Hey everybody, so welcome back. After a few weeks and hopefully with better screen bitrate recording settings on OBS, I'm back to tell you a little bit about utilizing things at night. So what's in the plan for today's video? We're going to go through the various capabilities and devices that we have in RHS in order to aid you in your nighttime operations. We're going to talk about sensors. We're going to talk about emitters, all the different things that are available, and more importantly, the types of devices that are there and what their capabilities are. And hopefully that will make it easier for you to perform your nightly duties. So let's start with, first of all, the type of devices that are available. So the first two categories is that we have what we call sensors. Sensors are devices that allow you to see various spectrums or spectra and to pick up things that are not visible with the naked eye. And we also have emitters, and there are various also subtypes of emitters. From the sensor side, we're talking about night vision goggles, so various night vision devices, which can be either helmet mounted or rifle mounted. Also thermal scopes. We'll talk a little bit about thermal later, but thermal devices are also coming in helmet mounted and rifle mounted capabilities. From the emitter side, we have our weapon mounted laser and light combinations, such as the NVGs or the Perst Classica. We have our velcro mounted strobes, so there are various types here. We also have weapon mounted lights and helmet mounted lights. And let's say from emitter side, that basically narrows it down. So on the table in front of me, I have all the various things available in RHS version 0.10 at this point. So at the time of the video, it's 0.10. In the future, the selection will grow, so you might see other things or follow-up videos on this regard. We have to start with what is the light spectrum, right? So, and the way that night vision devices actually work. So typically we see invisible light spectrum, so with our eyes, without any other sensor enhancement devices. So when it gets dark, seeing becomes quite difficult. Definitely distinguishing enemies in the dark in the distance becomes very tricky. So two types of sensors have been developed at the time or implemented in our mod. I mean, more and more have been actually developed, but in the mod we implement two types of sensors, which constitutes the night vision goggles, which work in the infrared, and thermal devices, which are what is known as flir. And flir stands for forward-looking infrared. It's a different wavelength of infrared, but so still in the same sort of area spectrum, but it concerns itself with the area of the infrared spectrum that is more relevant to heat emissions. The way that normal night vision devices work, they also work in infrared, but what they do is they enhance, let's say, or multiply the number of photons that are caught reflected off other surfaces through their special equipment inside the tubes to make the picture brighter and capture more photons reflecting off everything else, bouncing off from, the light from the stars. Maybe there's moon reflection going on, or from light somewhere else, and they actually allow you to see emitters that are also working in that particular part of the spectrum, which are not visible with your naked eye. So, the most typical device that we can have is a night vision goggle, which is mounted on the helmet. So let's equip a helmet. And we can then attach, make sure the helmet has a mounting point. And then you can attach a device to it. So let's have a look. We have in PVS 14s, we have, what else do we have? PVS 31s. The Russian side has also some thermal patrol AR. And let's start with the Russian 1PN 138. So now it's attached to the helmet. Actually see it mounted on the front bracket. And by utilizing the N key, it moves the device over our face. You can see it's also animated, so it looks properly for all the clients. So one might think, okay, this is really nice, but first of all, okay, it's not that much better, and also lights in the distance and up close are actually getting quite blurry. What else can it do, and this is a property of almost all devices that are there, is that if you hold down the shift key and then use your mouse wheel, we can actually control the gain of the device. So the picture gets brighter if you scroll up and darker if you scroll down. If you press the mouse wheel, it will reset the gain back to normal. Now, why would you do that? Well, in some cases the brightness might be actually too high because of the lights that are coming into the picture. So what you can do is also turn on the built-in illuminators that come in on the helmet, for instance. So most night vision goggles have an infrared illumination device. So this light cone that shines from the night vision goggle onto the surfaces around it. And then you can see it's as if we have a flashlight. However, it's not there, it's not visible in the visible spectrum. So other players around you that do not have a night vision device will not see this light cone. This is a RHS only feature, so does not work for all third-party night vision devices, but things that are only visible in infrared part of the spectrum can only be seen through devices that can actually see through infrared part of the spectrum. This will be applicable to also to things like lasers and other lights that can be switched to infrared mode. We can put on another type of goggle that, for instance, uses a different type of mechanism working inside, and you can see that the picture is a little bit of a different tint. So this is what's called white phosphorus night vision goggles, and you can see they have this distinct blue/white tint. Again, gain controls are also there, and unlike the previous device, which was a monocular type, so it had a single tube. This one is a binocular type, so it has a wider field of view and much more convenient for the wearer. All right. Be careful. Some night vision devices require a special helmet attachment and will not fit on the universal helmet attachments. I mean, we don't segregate it too much, but for example, if you want to wear the GOONV101 type glasses, they will only fit on the Russian pilot's helmet, which is the Zesha same 7A. Oh, sorry. That will not fit any other goggles, but will fit the pilot goggles. Again, inventory in Arma Reforger is as always. So these are binocular, but then green. And considering that they're of older type, we also simulated the quality, well, try to simulate that the quality is a bit worse than, for instance, newer type of devices. So that's how helmet mounted night vision goggles work. Again, don't forget that you have illuminators that can allow you to, for instance, drop the gain down to a more acceptable level so that you don't have too much screen brightness, and will still illuminate the areas nearby you. For instance, when you're searching in buildings, to a much better level than without these illuminators. Now I mentioned you also have sensors that can be mounted on weapons. So that comes in part through night vision enabled or thermal scopes. One example is, let's say, night vision scopes that are completely self-standing, and then you have scopes which are combinations of a regular scope with some sort of night vision or thermal device attached at the end. So first let's have a look at a scope that's built in, and this is the Soviet 1PN93. Attaches to a dovetail type of rifle attachment. So this is Russian AKs, this is RPGs and SVDs, and there are different ones for the AK, SVD, and the RPG because they're sighted for different rounds, of course, and have different reticles. Here's the AK one. So it's always in night vision mode. It doesn't have let's say non-night vision capabilities. So if you're running it during the day, I would avoid that because it will be completely, let's say, bled out from the light. And by holding down the mouse key, you can also enable the reticle illumination to make it a bit easier to see where you're shooting. Keep in mind, unlike night vision goggles, some of these scopes don't have gain control, so you will not be able to make them less or more bright. So you also have, like I mentioned, devices that are just standalone sights. This is the REAP-IR thermal device. And a word about thermal, which does also have some gain control, is that thermal is the worst simulated part of night vision in Arma Reforger so far. We make at RHS a little hack in terms of how it works. Basically, we're putting in an let's say a wide body model on top of soldiers to make them stand out in this mode. However, you can see that vehicles are still completely invisible, and it will not work until, let's say, we have some more capability in terms of editing the engine. For now, this is the best we can do in terms of thermals. It's the same principle on vehicle thermals, which I'll show in a bit later. So then we also have combination scopes. They only come in combination, so if you would like to detach one scope from the other, it will not work. But here we have, for instance, a sniper scope with much larger zoom capability coupled with the thermal scope. And this is how it looks like. Also have here the PAS 13G. Let's have a look at that with combination scopes as well. Like I said, some of these do have gain control. So again, holding down shift and using the mouse wheel to go up and down, you can control the brightness. So that even in daytime operations, you can use the scope. So definitely play around with the gain. It's definitely worth it. So this is, let's say, when it comes to night vision devices, as in sensors. Now we can move on to emitters. So all these NVGs, of course, you can find in the crates of the respective factions. So emitters. Emitters allow us to enhance the visibility of objects that fall within their emitting field, therefore reflecting light back into our eyes or inside of our night vision devices or sensors. So the simplest form, of course, we can think of is just a simple flashlight. It allows us to illuminate an area that is around us, and we can visually see the light. So this is a, let's say, M300C flashlight. Doesn't have infrared capability, just lets us turn it on and off, and also control a little bit the cone angle. Some flashlights come with, let me just take off all this crap. Some flashlights come with extended capabilities such as infrared. So if you turn it on, it has normal visible light, but we can also switch to infrared. And even though it's on right now, we cannot see anything. But remember how I said that night vision goggles have illuminators that can shine in infrared spectrum and thus only visible through night vision goggles? Same principle here. So as soon as I apply the night vision goggles, I can see the light cone. Any other players that are around me that do not have night vision goggles or night vision capability through scopes will not see this light. If I switch to visible, I can still see it through night vision, because night vision still picks up some visible light, of course, but the infrared capability is limited to night vision goggles. That brings us to even more capable flashlights. So let's take this one off. Well, I put it somewhere else. Well, it just doesn't want to drop off. Let's turn it off. And let's take a look at a more advanced flashlight, which is the Clash 2, which is a Russian flashlight produced by Zenitko. And on top of being able to switch on infrared mode, just like we did with the American SU-233, it also has strobe mode. Now, strobe mode, you might think, well, what the hell is the use of this thing? And does it work in IR? Let's have a look. And it was actually in IR. So again, if I... Whoa. Okay, it was not in IR, sorry. So right now it's in IR mode. And only visible through night vision goggles. Night vision off, not visible. So why would you have it flashing, you ask? And you might have seen this in some other devices as well. We'll touch upon it. There are two reasons. First of all, when you're clearing a building, it might be a very effective way to blind enemies by strobing them, so they become more disoriented. And secondly, the capability is also useful to have friendly identification in the field. So if, for instance, half of your team turns on strobes and the other one doesn't, in the distance where I would see strobing lights, I would be able to tell that friendlies of a particular unit are walking around. This is the reason why you can find strobe modes in a lot of different light devices. So not only flashlights, but also in strobes, which, you know, they get their name from it, or even American laser devices. So keep in mind, strobing is very useful for identification and for blinding enemies. The other weapon-mounted capability are laser and light combinations. Let's take off our lights. And let's look at the laser light combinations. This come on the Russian side in the Perst Classica variant. And the American side, we have 3 laser and light combinations. That would be the PEC 15, PEC 16, and PSQ 23, I believe, is the name of it. Of course, inventory does not pick it up, but we also discussed it on our 010 preview. So what makes it different than a regular light, even the advanced light, is that typically they also have a laser capability. So that would be pointing or, you know, aiming kind of laser. If we have a look at the device, this is the PEC 15, for instance, you will see that it has a bunch of different modes. IR pulses, that's coming back to the strobing, and spotlight angle adjustment. Now, you will see in this case, there's no turning on and off. This is because devices like this typically need to have a mode set to something other than mode 0, which is off, to be able to turn on as well. This prevents accidental um, accidental switching on of the device when you don't want to expose yourself to the enemy. That means that you need to make 2 actions in order to turn it on. Every mode has a meaning, and you can read about it on our website. So typically A stands for, on American laser light combinations, A stands for aim, which is a laser. And the second letter, which will be either L or H, stands for low and high. That means the intensity of the laser or the light. D stands for dual usually. And I is usually for infrared. So let's turn on. First of all, set the mode aim low. And then you see that another mode has appeared, which is mode O. That is mode off. That means that you cannot turn it on when it's in this mode. So now we can turn it on. And if we have a look, we do see a fading dot to where we can aim. Now, don't forget that we have gain settings. And this is a very, very faint laser. If we turn on night, we'll see that also that it's a visible laser, i.e. I can see it with my naked eye. You can also, of course, set modes through the radial menu, and I would advise to do that because in the center you will also see the explanation of what the mode name means. So high power infrared laser and infrared illuminator. High power infrared laser. If I turn this mode, you see in visible light I do not see anything. If I turn on night vision goggles, I have a high powered laser where I can actually see the laser path. Right. That means that I can also use this now to point to my friendlies, or to indicate to my friendlies what am I actually shooting at. So they can use my light to be able to identify targets. Let's have a look. What other do we have? Dual low, dual high. Now I have a high power laser and an infrared illuminator that helps me see a bit more in my vicinity. Be careful, of course, again. You can blind yourself out if your gain is set too high or too low. So do be mindful about what you're doing. Do not complain that night vision looks too dark or too bright. You have gain controls, so do actually use them and reset them. You can also set it to low power in case it's not enough. You want to up the gain and have more capability, not to blind yourself. I did mention that it has strobing capability, and only certain light modes do, so be mindful to read about it. But for instance, in PEC 15, I can set the frequency of the strobing, which is right now set to no strobe. But as soon as I set the frequency, you will see it indicates how many times per second the light will flash. If I do it 8 times per second, you can see very quick strobing of the illuminator. Or very slow. Again, for identifying friendlies, this is useful because now you actually have 4 different options to set the speeds and identify friendlies based on the speed of their strobing. Right. Through inspection, you can also operate all of the modes of the device. Now it's set back to continuous. PEC 16. PEC15. Works in exactly the same way, but has a few other modes. So please read their capabilities. You have visible light, which is not there on the PEC15. And don't forget that you also have to turn the device on once the mode has been selected. It's got a very powerful flashlight. It's too actually bright here. Just like with the other flashlights, you also have the capability to adjust the spotlight angle. The Russian device, so let's drop these. It's called Perst Classica, and its modes are also a little bit different. So not all devices are the same, but similar principles. So you have infrared and laser and illuminator, infrared laser, infrared illuminator, and visible red laser. Don't forget to turn it on. You have a red laser capability. Visible in infrared, and also infrared. Notably, strobing on the Perst Classic will also strobe the laser, unlike on the PECs where only the illuminator is being strobed. So this capability is also there. All right. Devices like PEC16, Perst Classic can also be controlled on the ground. So you actually could use it to mark something if you wanted to. If I set mode aim high, you can see the laser shining on the device that was left on the ground. So let's turn it off, because this ground mode would be more relevant for some of the other final set of devices. And this is the let's say velcro attached light emitters, as well as helmet attached lights. So first let's get a helmet that has some rails on it, and let's have a look at the helmet attached light. In this case, this is the Charger Pro helmet light. It attaches to the rail on the side and allows us to illuminate in either visible or infrared spectrum. The nice thing about a helmet mounted light, indeed, it can follow your head, so it's not anymore stuck to your gun. That means that you can use the control or Alt key to move your head around and then illuminate different parts of the environment around you. It also has infrared mode. Again, let's put on some night vision goggles. An illuminator that is only visible in night vision. infrared spectrum. So you can enhance your capability by switching on both the infrared helmet mounted light and also the illuminators on your night vision goggles, right? So those are still possible to operate while the other light's on, because they're completely independent of each other. So now we have this quite a light cone capability. Finally, we also have some helmet mounted strobes, or velcro mounted strobes, because it's not just for the helmet. Let's turn off our illuminators, and you can see I'm exclusively using the radial wheel because for me, for instance, it's the most convenient way to operate all lights. But remember that radials only work with helmets and weapons, not yet with other places of attachment. So here I have 4 different light emitters that we have in the mod, which is the Hellstar 6, the MS2000 illuminator. We have the VIP strobe, I believe it's called, VIP strobe marker, and the B-light strobe marker. And the way it works is that these are light emitters that can be attached to Velcro areas, primarily on the helmet, and this is probably what you've seen the most, is that we can attach this device, it's on your helmet, and can be used to provide friendly identification or illumination of the area. So Hellstar is actually the one that's been sort of modeled the best at this time. Actually supports the modes of the correct modes of the actual device. We can turn it on, and it has some slight illumination of the area around you. It's barely visible actually, but certainly friendlies that are some distance away from you will be able to spot you moving through the brush. Let's have a look at the modes that it has. For instance, red stable, this is visible, infrared stable, and infrared flash. Infrared stable is very bright infrared light, illuminates quite a large area around you and makes you visible to others. Infrared flash, quite often seen and turned on, for instance, when air support needs to see friendlies on the ground so that they're very identifiable through night vision. Again, night vision off, light is not visible. And other modes, the A modes for the Hellstar, for instance. Let's have a look at mode A2, red stable, are visible without night vision goggles. When the helmet supports multiple attach points, of course you can also attach multiple things. In this case, in the back of the helmet. But don't forget that you can also move the item to other attachment slots which support it. And control through the radial. Again, it's the easiest way to do it. Turn it on, nothing invisible. Turn on my goggles. Now we have a red visible light and then a strobe on the side of our helmet, which has preset frequency, only visible through night vision. So if you are planning an operation against a non-night vision capable enemy with a certain device like this. Very easy to see friendlies in that environment. Now I mentioned that these are not just helmet mounted, but you can mount it in other things that have velcros, for instance our vests. But the only problem right now is that you do not have this interaction with objects that are mounted on a vest, for instance. So you would need to actually turn it on first on the ground. Let me actually just turn off the B light. Turn on the device still on the ground or when it's on your helmet. And well, actually I'll attach it to my helmet so it's easier to pick up, but then I can just drag it into my vest and it will pick a velcro slot. I can change it to back slot as well if I wanted to. Nope, it really remove. Yeah, what we're gonna do is, and I really hate sometimes the bugs that the system still has, so I can put it into the front. Yeah. Oh no, sorry, the back. Anyway, we have a back mounted strobe. But like I said, in the radial, I do not have the vest to be operated with. So if you need to turn it off, it's a little bit cumbersome. You need to unattach it. And then turn it off on the ground. So that rounds up all the personal devices that we have. We also have this battery pack, which you think, oh, why am I talking about this? Well, batteries are not supported, but actually the battery pack does come with its own strobing. So it does have capability, visible or infrared. And you can see that there's a small light strobing now at the back of the helmet. Again, for identification. This is very useful. Can be also in battery pack, visible light. It does blind you a little bit. Wow, okay. I mean, that's the the drawback of these kind of devices. And also depends on the brightness and gamma settings of your game. Yeah, use it with that in mind. You know, just be mindful of what you have. Turn off. One last thing to mention, I already spoke about night vision devices for vehicles. Most of the Russian vehicles have thermal capability. Let's have a look at actually that's good. But it might not be obvious how to turn it on, so just make sure that when you get into a gunner seat and you're looking through the sight, is that you use the typical night vision key for a keyboard, that's N, in order to engage it, and then you're in your thermal mode again with gain controls, just like on the personalized devices. Don't forget that you can use zoom in capability with numpad plus minus, and can go back to also normal visible light mode through the N key. Do keep in mind that I don't know, not everybody knows, but there is also a turret stabilization that you can engage by pressing spacebar. And if you press space, you can also do following mode, which is like you can follow a vehicle that is in that in the reticle at the time of engaging, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that's it. Thank you all. I hope this was useful and you picked up something new, and we'll see you next time.